Gordon Dalgleish again, and delighted to have with me today Gary Lisbon from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Gordon. Nice to hear your voice and see your face.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for staying up late this evening for the conversation. Gary is one of these serial golf entrepreneurs. I've known Gary for, certainly a dozen years, or more, just through the golf industry. In the travel business, does some corporate days in Australia, and also photography, and traveled the world in pursuit of golf course photography, and just added, interestingly and very uniquely in these challenging times, jigsaw puzzles to his portfolio. So got a lot to try to cover here. But first of all, I want to just kind of chat with you about the view from down under of the current predicament that we're in during these tumultuous times. And I noticed that there's now discussion of the TransTasman Bubble. What's the general conversation on the street in Melbourne just now about that possibility?
Yeah, that's something that's quite exciting. Obviously, with this virus, countries are trying to contain borders and they're closing down borders. So, for instance, in Australia, we can't really travel even interstate. So even at a state level, they're closing down borders. They have different levels of restrictions, let alone thinking about travelling internationally. But the two governments, New Zealand government and Australian government, have said, well, we've contained the virus quite well. We still want to stimulate trade, so they're considering looking at a trans-Tasman bubble to allow travel between those two countries, and that will certainly help us if that happens, and then gradually, hopefully, the rest of the world will open up. Not sure how long that's going to take.
Yeah. So in the British Isles, golf courses are currently closed and have been for many weeks, although that looks as though it might be changing here sooner than later, but obviously with some restrictions. In the United States, golf courses, it's a bit of a hodgepodge of rules. What's been the situation down in Australia? And I mean, with you right in the middle of the sandbelt, all the great golf courses down there.
We do have great golf courses, Gordon, you are correct, and currently all the sandbelt courses are closed. So Australia being, whilst the federal government is handling things nationally, the state governments have been given their own directives to do what ultimately they want. So it's quite frustrating, but at the moment, every state in Australia, with the exception of Victoria, which is where Melbourne is, are allowed to play golf. So in Victoria and Melbourne, we're not allowed to play golf. The state government's considering that position on Monday, and we're hoping that will open up a little bit. They're being extra cautious, and whilst we don't necessarily like it being lovers of golf, I think we respect the decisions and the conservatism they're taking in that regard. But it's certainly hard when your counterparts in Sydney and Perth and Adelaide are freely playing golf and enjoying it.
Indeed, yes. And then a final question on this topic: travel and tourism. How do you see the future for travel and tourism in the South Pacific? Obviously, hotels have been, closed for some time, and they're slowly going to start to reopen, and restaurants and everything that goes along with travel and tourism. How do you see that happening down under?
Yeah. It's been a very interesting time. You'd be aware of the bushfires we had in that December-January timeframe, and they were devastating, and they really decimated economies, regional economies mainly that couldn't afford it. And then off the back of that comes COVID-19. So they're struggling. Hotels are obviously struggling. There's little occupancy there. Restaurants are all closed again in Victoria. We can't have any dining externally. So companies are getting creative in how they're doing that. So offering takeaway. I see hotels with low occupancy are now offering rent a hotel room for a day and use it as a business room to get away from the noise of the household. So how are they going to recover? I think they'll gradually recover, but it's going to be, I sense, a 2 or 3 year effort to get back to the levels that we were at.
Yeah. So on to more positive topics. I always enjoy finding out how people got involved in the game of golf. I started playing golf as a 7-year-old. What was your original introduction to the game of golf? Was it through family or friends, or You happen to live
Yeah.
across the street from the golf course.
Yeah, it was through a neighbour, a friend of mine. I still remember, played 15 years of age I was, and went out to a local public course, and I hit the ball. Every shot I think I hit along the ground, didn't get it in the air once. But I still was fixated on this game, and I think probably because of that, I had a real desire to try and get better and better and better. And as you know, once the bug hits you, it just continues. So certainly from that age, 15, 16, 18, etc., developed the bug, had a desire to go and play different courses where I could. Always had a desire to play Royal Melbourne, for instance. That was sort of the jewel in the crown. And I still remember the first time I played there, probably as a 18, 17-year-old. I was just like a kid in a lolly shop. I was so excited about it. So the golf journey started not as young as you Scotsmen do. 7 years of age is pretty young, but 15 was about the mark there, and just developed in a social sense, and then obviously turned into a business that we've been running now for about 20 years.
So it should be noted that you've, from your first time at Royal Melbourne, you're now a member at Royal Melbourne, which is just one of the most impressive golf facilities that you'll find anywhere in the world. Great golf course. He's obviously just held the President's Cup, but it must be a much pride to yourself to kind of reflect back on occasion about your journey through golf and to end up where you are just now.
No, certainly. I mean, I was fortunate to join Royal Melbourne about 11 or 12 years ago after being on a waiting list for about 10 or 11 years, so sort of a 22-year journey. And again, I still remember that phone call when my proposer rang me up and said, "Okay, Gary, you're in." And I still remember my first game with a member that I didn't know, and I was fearful. Once I became a member, I didn't want to go down there for the first 3 weeks. And then I thought, okay, you remember, you need to get down and play. So I did that, and then you just assimilate into the environment. It's funny when you have a course like a Royal Melbourne or places like Muirfield and other established and private courses around the world, you think from the outside that they're very stuffy places, but nothing could be further from the truth. With Royal Melbourne, it's just a bunch of really nice members who love golf for golf. There's no real airs and pretenses there. It's just golf for the sake of good golf.
Which is, it kind of strips away everything down to the base camaraderie of the game, which is terrific. So you've worked your way through, you played golf, the career path into golf. I mean, golf is one of these things that there's no obvious way into it, and I'm curious how you ended up doing what you're doing. Fairly
structured process. You'll love this. So out of school, I studied business, became a chartered accountant, worked for KPMG in the audit division. One of my first audit jobs was Kingston Heath Golf Club, which is a Melbourne Sandbelt course. And again, I was so excited, Gordon, because we'd do the work during the day and then they'd let me go out and play golf. So about an hour at night that I think I played 15 holes in an hour, something along those lines. So that was the initial taste. And then from that, I actually became a financial controller at a local business, and I've always been a bit of a computer nerd. So I developed a golf statistics package called Cypress Golf Analyzer. And what that does was it monitors your golf game. It was sort of one of the first examples of a golf stats package. So you record the key things out on course, you then plugged it into the system, and it could give you trends and identify your strengths and weaknesses in key areas. So as a result of that, we had a few golf pros that started using that. So Stuart Appleby, Adam Scott actually used it back in his schooling days at Corelbin School. We had Kari Webb using it for a while, and into an intro with Ian Baker Finch. And I worked with Ian and his coach at the time, Stephen Bann, in a business called Pure Golf Academy. And we're in there designed to improve people's games. And then from that, Maureen, my wife Maureen, and I started our own business, which is so far removed from what we're doing now. Essentially, and again, you'll love this, we imported golf-themed pewter giftware from Providence, Rhode Island, and it was a brand called Fort Golf. And so we had a little pewter business card holders, we had glasses. We sold that all through the corporate market, and then gradually we evolved into running corporate outings, organising golf holidays, and then the photography. So it's been varied from that chartered accounting background through to where we are now.
That's funny because there's a page somewhere I wrote when I was like 12 or something in Scotland, and I wanted to be an accountant. So there must be some kindred spirits between accountants and the travel business, and I know that I would have been a shocking accountant. So, but anyway, it's funny that you worked your way through.
I think I was a shocking accountant, but it did provide a nice foundation for having our own business down the line.
But you reflect back on that, and had you at KPMG, had you not had that connection with Kingston Heath, you might have, and you ended up somewhere else. You might never have found your passion in combining golf and your career. So it's these forks in the road that are always intriguing.
They are. They go one way or the other, and I'm thankful for it.
So golf course photography is something that you've had a passion for a while. Obviously, it's changed a lot with the equipment. I remember, I think it's 1976, in Scotland, there was a fella that we both know well, Brian Morgan,
yes,
working for the Daily Record, taking pictures of the Shah of Iran being in hospital in New York, and he was trying to break into the golf business. And Brian probably was one of the first, if not the first, kind of significant golf course photographer. And he would, his claim was the kind of the little red light that he had. But in these days, it was big cameras that you were lugging around, and it was kind of like suitcases. Now things have obviously changed in the intervening 40 years. What part of golf course photography is kind of the true passion for you? Is it just the locations? Is it the color? Is it the people?
It's a combination of all things, but just going back on Brian, and Brian's a mentor of mine very much, and I've been fortunate to have spent some time with him photographing different courses, getting tips and knowledge from him. So I really admire the guy. I think he's the only golf course photographer I know that travels with a kilt. He wears his kilt out on course, and which is okay unless you're holding a ladder, and which he's climbed up the ladder and you're holding the ladder for him. So it's not the best look.
You need blinkers.
But again, that the whole evolution of digital photography, because back when Brian started, it was obviously film and all associated challenges with film. But now it's very much a digital business. And I still remember the first couple of digital cameras I had. They were, 1 or 2 megapixel cameras, and you thought, wow, these are wonderful. And now we're up to 20, 30, 40, 50 megapixels. We've got interchangeable lenses, we've got SLRs, and obviously we've got drones that have completely changed the landscape in terms of how you photograph courses. So when you see a course from the sky, it's completely different to when you see it on the ground. And that's something that I've adopted and embraced really enthusiastically, as have a number of other of my contemporaries. And you'll see when you look at Instagram and other places, there are some amazing images out there.
So has the golf photography world changed a lot as it's become easier for the amateur photographer to think they're taking good pictures? I mean, I saw some remarkable statistic about the number of pictures that are taken, how many billion pictures are taken a day, because everybody's got a phone and everybody's therefore got a camera. How has that changed the golf photography landscape?
Barriers to entry are non-existent. Anyone can buy a digital SLR or a drone and put it up in the sky and go, hey, I'm a golf course photographer. So thankfully, a lot of them do a really bad job, meaning that we look extra good. There's a lot of competition out there, certainly. At the end of the day, I have relationships with key clubs and key people, and they like my work and they keep referring me through to others. So I figure that if you keep taking photos that are interesting and engaging and that people love, that you'll continue to get work. There's enough work out there for everybody, whether you're based in the UK like David Cannon, another great guy, or in Scandinavia, you've got Jakob Sloman, who is someone I really highly regard. Even in Australia, Nick Wall is another guy that does some great aerial stuff. And then in the US, you've got people like Evan Schiller and so on that do great stuff. So barriers to entry non-existent. Anyone can become, in their mind, a golf course photographer, but at the end of the day, the quality really does stand out. And some of those people I've mentioned have some great images.
I believe you were working middle of this week with some golf course photography. What are your most recent golf courses you've taken images of, and some of your what you think of as the most stunning golf courses that you've been fortunate to take images of?
Yeah. What the year 2020, what it was going to be, I'll start with that. And I had shoots scheduled in China, Indonesia, Spain, all throughout Australia, USA, Canada, everywhere. And then obviously this thing hit. So 2020 per se has been a bit of a localized area. But again, I'm in the middle of doing a shoot at Kingston Heath Golf Club. I do ongoing work for Royal Melbourne. I did the photography for the club during the President's Cup, which was wonderful to be able to get up close and personal to all the players and inside the ropes. That was a great opportunity. Closer to field, home, New Zealand. How amazing are those courses? And I know you've been there and many of your clients have been there. You talk such contrast. You talk the North Island, where you've got beautiful courses like Cowrie Cliffs with those backdrops, and Cape Kidnappers with the drama of the cliffs, and then the new kid on the block, Tara Iti, which is just mind-blowingly beautiful. And then you go down south to Queenstown, and you've got Jack's Point and the hills and Millbrook. New Zealand is an amazing country. Visually, it's just visually arresting. It's just so beautiful. The air is so clean. So from a photographic point of view, it's wonderful, because it's so crisp. The images that come out, the skies are so blue, the mountains are just there, and they're so dramatic. So that's it. But I have visions when we get back to normal of having a big year in 2021. I'd love to get back to the UK, and I just love the courses over there. I love photographing those courses. They just present so much. And I'm not talking necessarily about heavily manicured courses, because so many of them aren't, like you might see in the US. They're just natural raw links courses that just glow, and they glow in the golden hours. So in summer, it's 4 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. till 5:15 in the morning. And then at night, especially if you're up at Royal Dornoch, 10:30 at night, 10:45, you're sort of still out on course photographing. It's just...
Yeah. So actually, I think you made references the golden hours, and that probably is one of the issues that defines or differentiates rather the do-it-yourself photographer from the professional, and therefore the quality of the images. You're getting up at 4 and 5 in the morning to get the perfect sunlight, so that you get the humps and hollows of the golf of a links course in particular, the humps and hollows of the fairway with the shadows and the sunlight. And that's really kind of in many respects what brings it to life, in my view. And if you want to kind of fill in the blanks from a layperson's observation.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, you can easily see someone who doesn't really know what they're doing if they're out there filming 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or midday when the sun's directly over your head. You're right. You don't get the ripples in the fairways, the nuances. The light is a lot more harsh. It's not a rich golden light, and you really see that with the resultant images. So yeah, you need to be prepared to be an early bird and stay up late at night to get the best images. But I can tell you, when you do and you capture those images, you forget everything about sleep, and you just go, wow, this was worth it.
You feel very fortunate when you're out there, and oftentimes you've got nobody to share it with at that point in time, but you do later.
Exactly.
Moving along, you've been fortunate. Obviously, part of your business is in the travel inbound and outbound from the South Pacific. Your travel memories for over the 20 years of different places that you've been to, or even just in the local area, as we know, golf just attracts characters. Any particular characters that you recall from either around Melbourne, or whether it's a trip over to King Island or down to Barnbougle or anywhere else in the world that just kind of struck you as being, wow, that's one of life's characters?
Oh, certainly you get characters. In the UK, you might get a memorable caddy or two that's going to tell you his life story, or will do certain things like at Lahinch. They'll on the fifth hole, on the Dell hole, the group ahead will run and put your ball in the hole when it's playing to a blind pin, stuff like that. In Barnbougle, you can't go past Roscoe. Roscoe's been a bit of an institution down there. He's been there since day dot. Just generally, there are people. I can't really recall too many, but they're all different countries,
Yeah.
different characters, different experiences.
I recall, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe it was 4 years ago, that we flew together down to King Island to play golf, and the four of us flew in, and the fella that was cutting the grass between the runways at the airport there was also, I think, the Avis man on the island, and then later on we saw him driving taxis. I mean, these places, it's terrific. I mean, it's just they're doing everything, but a character along the way.
You also remember the other guy. There was another guy on King Island who was doing a bunch of stuff like that, and then ended up serving us dinner in the Boomerang restaurant. You remember that?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, good
Small
stuff.
Places.
Yeah, they really are. So of all your travels, I hate when people ask me about my favorite golf course or favorite destination. So I'll rephrase it for you, and I'll kind of go with if I need to come back here and play, what golf course or where would kind of come to the top of your list? Places that you've maybe been to that you haven't had an opportunity to play, but you've photographed it, and you just think to yourself, this is really cool. I'd love to come back here and spend a little bit of time and enjoy the facility.
Yeah, certainly. Photographically, I think I counted the other day 22 different countries I've been to photograph. Thankfully, I get to play most of the places that I do photograph. So obviously, there's still some on the bucket list, places like Augusta and whatnot. Cypress Point for me is, I've been fortunate. I've played it quite a few times. Most spectacular course in the world for me, just visually, to look at, to photograph, to enjoy. I think, as I alluded to earlier, some of the UK links courses and even the island. This year, or last year actually, Maureen and I went to Northwest Island. Now, we'd never been there before. So places like Cairn and Enniscrone in particular, they just blew my mind. Just how dramatic those dunes were, and how tall they are, and how the light presents, and there's no one there as well, just quietly. It's a very unknown region that's fantastic. So Northwest Island there. New Zealand, been pretty fortunate to have been most places. So I'm not really answering your question, because I think the only place I haven't been, and we were due to go this year on a big trip that got cancelled, is Canada. So that's the one place that I'm hanging out to go, whether it is Cabot or even over to Banff and Jasper and so on. Good.
Well, I'm sure you'll thoroughly enjoy it when you get there. So, Gary, you've been very generous with your time today. The one final question, and this really kind of speaks to your entrepreneurship and creativity. That during these challenging times, you've looked around as to what you can do and diversify your business a little bit. And one thing that you've done that I think is just terrific, and is these jigsaw puzzles that of all your photography. So explain how that kind of came to pass, and did you just stumble into it one day? And if you can just explain how it all kind of works.
Sure. I think they say necessity is the mother of invention. So
yes.
We started off this year, and we had a few key corporate events, and it was all going well. We had all our golf trips planned. Everything was going well. Then COVID-19 hit. And overnight, our business went from being extremely healthy through to forecast zero revenue for probably the next 8 months. And with no chance that golf events, corporate outings or holidays are likely to have any substantial revenue coming in. So we then turned to photography, and we said, okay, well, potentially people are still buying photos, which they weren't really. And then I had a client that sort of piqued my interest, and they said, jigsaw puzzles, I've been doing them. Can you do one with your golf courses? And I said, yes, of course I can. And I then went about trying to find a supplier. We found a local Melbourne supplier who does really good quality stuff, because for me, it's not about the cheapest, it's about the quality. And so we produce now, we've gone into a range of golf course jigsaw puzzles, 500-piece and 1,000-piece puzzles. We can reproduce any of my images that you get from my website into a puzzle, box it up and send it to you around Australia or around the world. Now, when I was sort of floating this idea, what do? You go out to your Instagram followers and you say, all right, you do a story. Guys, are you interested in golf course jigsaw puzzles? And overwhelmingly, it was a yes. So I thought, okay, step number one, there's my detailed market research. We then produced a few, went to Royal Melbourne and said to the general manager, Warwick, we said, Warwick, what do you think about doing some jigsaw puzzles and offering them to the members during this time? Because in Australia, we're pretty much in isolation. People couldn't really leave home unless they had to. And he thought, that's a great idea. Overnight, we got 100 orders, 100 orders for a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And we thought, we're onto something. We now do that for 20, 25 different courses in Australia, and that's increasing. We're featuring some overseas courses as well. We've set up a dedicated golf jigsaw puzzle website, and we're taking orders on there. So it's something we thought was certainly not on my radar, jigsaw puzzles, but now I see so much potential with it. I see it as being a great gift idea. It's a wonderful corporate item, corporate gift idea as well. And I think golf clubs ultimately will start stocking it in pro shops, because you just don't. I've never seen a jigsaw puzzle in a golf shop. I'm not sure if you have.
I have not, and I that's why it just really appealed to me that I think you're onto something there. It's terrific, but you're right. Necessity is the mother of invention, and congratulations for doing that, and congratulations for your success. We will do our best from a technology standpoint to put up a link on the on this YouTube and Facebook, so that if anybody wants to follow up with you on that, they can do that easily afterwards. But Gary, you have been you've been most generous with your time. I know these are challenging times for everyone, most obviously the travel and tourism sector, but you've been a great business partner of PerryGolf's over the years. We look forward to continuing that, and I hope that you and your family stay safe and healthy during these challenging times. So thanks again. Cheers.
Thank you, Gordon. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a good night.